All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we are excited to have Ryan Hanley, who's joining us again at the Independent Insurance Agents of Nebraska convention, live in person, and we're happy. Hey, he flew in. We're excited. So, Ryan, I think everybody knows, has his agency Rogue Risk that he's doing some innovative stuff on, and is just kind of a leader in the independent insurance agents world. So we're excited for today's episode and dive in.
Welcome to the Getting Past the Premium podcast, where we focus on breaking down risk management problems bit by bit until we find a solution. If you would like to discuss anything you hear on GPP with us, please reach out using the links in the description. Enjoy today's episode.
Oh, welcome, man. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Came in last night. We hit it hard this morning with a good keynote kickoff, and this afternoon we got another session, so that should be a lot of fun too. And I'm glad we get a chance to dive into some topics here on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so why don't you give everybody, most listeners probably know who you are from the podcasting in your past, but maybe give it, who is Ryan Hanley?
Yeah, 10-cent tour, been in the business for 16 years. 8 of those years were as a boots-on-the-ground producer selling home and autos for kind of standard local shop. Spent the next 5 years as a chief marketing officer for 2 different insurtechs, TrustedChoice.com, built the Agency Nation platform, and then the other job was Bull Penguin. Got fired from a bunch of those jobs and finally decided to start my own agency in March of 2020. And
good time.
Yeah, perfect time. 7 days before a zombie apocalypse, right? Started as a middle market shop and transitioned in large part because of the pandemic and just the lack of ability to communicate and get in front of prospects. We transitioned to small commercial. So today we are a national small commercial agency, and as you asked me before, we define that as anything from micro, so tiny, to about $150,000 in premium, as high as we'll go. And we write that in all lower 48, and we do primarily all our business comes to us either from channel partners or from, and think of commercial lines version of, say, mortgage brokers,
yep,
or inbound, so YouTube and website SEO.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I think where I was going to kind of start, 'cause I know this is a topic you're passionate about. We talk about it all the time. But in our industry, we tend to build books of business versus building a business, right? And, I have referenced your video that you did not too long ago about why that is and why people hit their ceiling, because they have their number, they get to their number, they're comfortable, we don't need to innovate anymore, all that. But I'd like to start there, because I think that is something, if we could get agency owners, even producers, thinking more like a business owner, I think this industry would take off. And so I'm curious, just your thoughts. Let's just start there and get your perspective on that and experience.
Yeah. One, I've been saying this for almost a decade. I see this as the reason that we are still in the limited innovation ecosystem that we're in, is that everyone has a number. They come to the industry with a number. That number could be $150,000 in personal income. It could be $1 million in personal income. Whatever that number is, everyone has one. And the minute we hit that number, we just stop working.
Yeah.
We just stop working. We just do. And that's not my original thought. I actually got that from one of my Travelers reps. He used to come into our office when I was working at the Murray Group. This is 10 years ago, 12 years ago. He would come into our office all the time, 2-3 times a month. And his name was Mike. And I said, Mike, why are you in here all the time? Not that you're not a nice guy, you don't like the donuts or whatever, but you're in here a lot. I know, that's a lot.
Kicking Mike out.
Yeah, he would just come in and hang and ask questions, and half the time he'd be in there for 2 minutes. He would just drop off a box of donuts and leave or whatever. And I said, "I go, dude, you're in here all the time." And he goes, "Ryan, here's the deal. I have 47 agencies in my territory. Last year, 2 grew.
Whoa.
Not grew with Travelers, grew or and anywhere. All their carriers just grew, had more revenue this year than last year. Only 2 of them did." And he said, there's a big joke among marketing reps, not just the Travelers, but so I don't want to make this a Travelers thing, but just marketing reps in general, that as soon as an agency principal hits their personal number, whatever that is, they're done. They're not going to send you any more business. They're going to do just enough to keep that number coming in, and it's over. And
which isn't hard.
I mean, not really.
90 to 95% revenue with the incumbent, right?
Yep. So my point in saying all that is, that is a perfectly fine way to live, but it doesn't help move the industry forward. And it certainly is what created the opportunity for all the insurtech, I don't want to call them disruptors because they obviously haven't disrupted us, but innovators who came in 2015, 2016. The reason that they came in and were able to make the splash that they were able to make was because we got lethargic in building a book and maintaining a book versus building and growing a business. And you just see it. I mean, literally, you can just see it.
So is that why? I mean, I was thinking about this when I was listening to your presentation this morning, where, I'm sitting there thinking, like, you said the majority of you are not going to do anything different leaving here
I think
after
you said 0% will do.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, so why is there a market for Ryan Hanley to come in and have this conversation?
Yeah.
Does it all boil back to personal income?
I don't think it's all personal income. So that's a really good question. I mean, thank goodness no one does any things I say, or they wouldn't keep hiring me back.
Well, that's what I kept thinking about. I'm like, so why are we in here listening to this?
Yeah.
And why are we having a technology-based conversation in 2021 in front of this particular group? It's mind-blowing.
The answer is everyone knows they should do it. They just don't want to do it because they don't need to.
Yeah.
They're not feeling enough pain.
Because of the income.
Yeah, that, and maybe they just said, geez, I had a question today where I said, for those listening at home, they weren't in the presentation. I gave an example of one of the processes that we were able to add a small piece of technology which removed 10% of our service time, which to me feels like a gigantic thing. And I got a question from the audience, which was basically 10% doesn't seem like enough.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if she was doing her math wrong or what.
Well, she did for a while. It was 6.4 minutes at one point.
Yeah.
We were like, I don't think
and
that's
this
right.
is not a knock on her. I think it's an honest thought. Her thought was, me changing what I do, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is someone gets to a certain point in their business, they like their life. Mm-hmm. They get to wake up, get the kids off to bed, get the kids off to school, whatever. They roll in. They can roll in 15, 20 minutes late. No one really cares. It's all good. Maybe they can go to the store. They know their clients. They know the business. And maybe they're not making as much as they know they could or should or could. I said could twice, I think. Doesn't matter. But the idea of having to put the work in to change, they're just like, nah, it's not worth it. Yeah. Like, I'm not willing to go from the $25,000 a year in additional income that I could make if I make this change isn't worth it to me to actually have to think about making the change and implementing it.
How many of those thoughts are based on feeling and not data?
It's also, a big part of it is fear. So I'll give you another example. And a lot of this comes from, this is in the 300s of keynotes that I've given. I've done 300 and some. I kind of lost track, like around 300. So I've done this a lot. I did a presentation in Illinois one time, to Illinois Big I. And this is probably 6 or 7 years. I was with Trusted Choice at the time. And I was giving a presentation and talking about a little bit about content marketing and stuff. And a young producer raised his hand. He said, Ryan, this all sounds great. My agency principal will never let me do this. And I kind of had a gut response, which was, then you need to find another agency to work for. Mm-hmm. I know that's cavalier, and I know that's not easy. Right. But it was just my gut response. And he kind of had never even considered that before. Right. And what I said to him was, look, I'm not necessarily advocating for you to leave, but if what you're telling me is this is what you need to do to be successful, and you're not able to do it, then you need to reevaluate. Yeah. Maybe you need to start your own agency. Maybe you need to go work for another agency, whatever. So, kind of a throwaway comment. Kind of ended the discussion, ended there. A couple minutes later, the presentation ended. And then what will happen is after a presentation, sometimes people will come up and they have comments or questions, which is great. I love that. Well, I saw this one guy kind of come stomping up from the back, and he was a rep for Hanover. Nothing against Hanover. We're pointing at Hanover. Nothing against any of these carriers. This is just dumb things that people say. So he said to me, you can't say that. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you can't tell a producer to start their own agency. Do you know how hard that is? And I said, well, I wasn't telling him to start his own agency. I said that if he can't be successful where he is, he needs to start thinking about other options. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you don't understand. At the Hanover, we require $300,000 a year in written premium year one, or we cancel your contract on you. Now I know that's not the case anymore, but this is a while ago.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, man, maybe you shouldn't get appointed with you. I don't know what you're saying to me. Like,
right.
All I'm saying is he seems unhappy. Maybe he should consider something else. And he goes, listen, and this is to get to your point. I know this is a long story, but he said, he goes, how are you going to tell a guy making $400,000 a year that he's doing it wrong?
Yeah, that's it.
This Hanover rep is not wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I had never considered that thought before until he said that. I would love to have seen my face, because I think I even had like a physical reaction to the comment, because I had never thought about the fact that, look, there are plenty of, and I'm not saying every agency owner makes $400,000. I know that's not the case. But, what he was saying was, you have someone who is successful by all monetary measures. And what you're saying is they need to change.
Yeah.
The fear of making a change that could take them from 400 to 375 keeps them from innovating, because they know what it takes to keep them at 4, what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And they're going, okay, if I listen to Ryan, there's a chance I could go to 500, or I could go down to 350. Mm-hmm. And I'm not worth risking the 350 to get to the 500. Mm-hmm. And that fear of, well, what if, you heard people today, what if there's an E&O claim? What if this happens? What if someone leaves? What if someone doesn't like the process that you have? These are good questions because they're real questions, but they're all fear-based.
Yeah.
And I would say I have the luxury, being a startup, that I can try a lot of things, because the worst that happens, we don't make a lot of money to begin with. So, today, so the worst that happens is someone leaves, whatever, we learn. I can
successful failure, as Steve would put it.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is they've been doing it the same way for a long time, and they're very fearful of the opposite happening.
Is it different in different industries, or let me ask it the other way around?
Yeah.
Is our industry unique in that respect?
So in between,
because there's a shitload of innovation going on around the world.
Oh, for sure.
Why are we still having technology-based conversations in a conference room in 2021 to people who just cannot seem to
because
adapt?
We're independent agents. We have no standardized voice, and we do so the idea would be, and I know this is an association, or there's association people listen to this, so I don't want to knock the associations there are, but the problem is they're fragmented state by state. Right, and then there's a national association, but the idea that you could possibly have a national association that could take in, what is there, how many 38,000 independent voices, and accumulate them into one voice that could actually be leveraged against a common cause, is just insane. There's no way to understand what everyone needs. So you break it down at a state level. At the state level, think about what an agent in Omaha's needs are versus an agent on the west side of the state, whatever the hell's out there. Yeah. Right? Completely different.
Not a lot.
Yeah. Right?
Well, some great people.
And breaking news, it's completely different out there than it is here.
Yeah. Right?
There's a little sarcasm.
No, I know. But what I'm saying
For
is
those listening.
But I know, I get it. I get what you're saying. But even suburban versus urban, right? Someone who's in downtown Omaha versus someone who's just in a suburbs on the outside. Their needs are different. Their customers are different. The pace is different. And then you take that and you put it into Philly, or you put it into Des Moines, or you put it into Dallas, Texas, or you put it into California, right? And now you have all these disparate needs, all these disparate systems, different ways of doing about it. I can tell you, for anyone who hasn't traveled the country, there is a different culture, different expectations, different pace of speaking, different pace of everything in all these different places. So it's not like someone in Texas doesn't want to be serviced the same way someone in New York does versus someone in Alabama versus someone in Iowa. And, for that reason, the technology companies have been able to kind of shove down our throat whatever they want, because who's going to push back on them?
Right. There's nobody to stand up.
Right. This is why every single insurtech company, the first top 100 broker they get, their pricing completely skews and they start screwing all the small agents. Mm-hmm. Because you get a Gallagher or an Aon or a Marsh or a Brown & Brown, they're going to be paying you $100,000 at a minimum per year, maybe $100,000 a month for whatever your tool is.
Right.
And then you look at, Sally 5-person agency in, Jackson, Mississippi, and you're like, I could give 2 craps about what she thinks. So now her voice doesn't matter because so what happens is all our tools get skewed towards the top 100 brokers because those are the ones who will pay the amounts of money that are meaningful to the tech companies.
Yep.
And we don't have at the lower level, and this isn't a knock on the association because I know how hard they try, right? I live that life. This is not. It is an impossible task for them, not a and I know they do the best they can to be able to aggregate all the voices in a single place. I mean, think about a tool like Glovebox, right? No matter what, it could be the best tool in the world. And I'm only bringing up this tool because we referenced it in the talk. It could be the best tool ever. Half the agents are going to want it, half aren't. So do you advocate for it? Yeah. Do you say, hey, carrier X, you need to be on this tool, but only half, and they're going to go, well, how many agents do you want to? This hat. Well, we're fine. The other agents don't have, so we shouldn't do it.
The successful ones then, they just get bought and the technology gets squashed.
Yes.
Like,
oh my gosh.
It continues to move upstream and then somebody finds a nice little corner for it.
Yep.
And we get into the same cycle.
Yep. That's 100% the reason it happens. And so what you've seen a movement towards what's called agent tech or broker tech, which is technology built by independent agents to solve the problems that our tech overlords refuse to solve or solve in a really crappy way.
Overlords.
Right? And I think that's great. You see tools like Better Agency came out of a broker. What are some others? Risk Advisor, Moz Advisor with Todd Tams, which is a great one. Which, if you're using Zywave's Mod Master, what Todd Tams is building in Mod Advisor is a better tool. I just shout out to Todd Tams. And this agent tech is really cool. The problem is you still have to make money selling agent tech.
Right.
So yes, these tools tend to be more geared towards agents. But the natural evolution is that someone bigger comes in and buys them, and then they have to make good on that promise, and then it just gets rolled up. So I don't know that there's a really good solution. I think it is you have to have your head on a swivel and be like this afternoon we're going to talk about a concept. It's not necessarily rocket science, but basically like we have to get rid of the ideology in the way we view our agency. There's kind of maybe just getting rid of ideology and life would be better from all aspects. But
now we're getting philosophical.
Well, we don't want to. Don't take me down that. But the concept is just do what's best for your customers. Just listen to your customers and do what's best for them. If they want an online portal, get them an online portal. Find the best one, whatever it is, use it. If that one turns into crap, go buy another one, right? Or find another one. I think we start to assume or we start to take on a philosophy, and it's like just do what your customers want.
Step one, there's no listening.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's you don't understand what your customers want because you don't give them the opportunity. So you keep driving out to the construction company to deliver the policy because you're afraid of asking them if that provides any value or not.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything else to give them.
Yeah. Is that a whoop strap?
Yeah.
Is it cool?
It's dope.
Yeah, I want one of those.
I can show it to you later.
I agree with you. I think that you have to listen. You have to have a mechanism for tracking. Just again, simple things like setting expectations during your process. And if people push back on the expectations, then they might not be a good customer. Because if you say, here's how we do business, whatever that way is, and that customer doesn't want to do it, then you have two options. You can either change your process to meet that customer's needs, or you have to say, I'm sorry, but this is the way we do business. I think where people get really put through the ringer in terms of wasted time and effort and expense is when they're trying to serve both masters, right? They have a philosophy on how things should be done, but they're serving customers who don't believe in that philosophy, so then they do it a different way for that type of customer because they want the customer. And it's like, it has to be one or the other. You are either constantly listening and evolving to match customer base, or you do it a certain way and you only work with customers that do it that way. I don't think you can have a foot in each bucket.
All right, so this is an amazing topic. So it goes back to breaking down the ideology though, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? from your perspective,
buy out your father so you can get all the old ass people out of the way, and then start to do things the new way.
I mean, it's so true.
Easier said than done. We're
Yeah.
in the process. I don't think my dad will listen to this. But we'll see.
Yeah. So, all right. I mean, but that's right because, yeah. I mean, it's not different. You opened up your keynote. It drives me nuts. We hear this all the time. It's like, well, Sally likes it different in the middle of the state or across the country than John likes it and whatever. And if you spend any time at all working on the business instead of in the business, you understand that you can't serve two masters.
Yeah.
But it's deeper than that. You can't go back to your office and be like, okay, so listen, we're only going to go after optometrists. So, like, how do you start?
But then we get what if a dentist wants to do business with me?
We can't tell the dentist no.
Yeah, we can't tell them no.
So again, this is a great point. So one, I'm only partially kidding about the buy out your father thing. I think this is going to sound terrible because I've never had to do this. I think some of us need to grow a pair of whatever it is that we have, since we all have two of something, and have the talk. Where are we going? What is my role in this thing?
Yeah.
All right. The number of calls that I get from both men and women who have a father or a mother who owns an agency, and they're like, well, someday I hope that I'll get an. I'm like, if you don't have a contract, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's your father, your uncle, your mother, your sister. I don't care who it is. If you don't have a contract, and I'm saying to you,
coming from a guy that got fired.
I've been fired multiple times by multiple companies. I've been,
from your family.
Well, technically it was an amicable split, but but my point in saying all this is like, I have talked to, and this is not hundreds, if not thousands, of second generation men and women who are struggling with how do we make this jump. Because guys, I hope this is a new knowledge. You can't grow an agency today the way you grew an agency 20 years ago. You can maintain an agency doing the same shit. You can't grow one. You can't. The next 10 years of how you grow an agency are going to be different. Now, if your goal is maintenance, yes. Can you do a lot of the similar things and maintain? Probably. But if you're trying to grow, you cannot grow the same way. It just doesn't work that way. So if that's the case, then what's happening is, you have agency principals who are sticking around longer because we have drugs and, Pfizer sponsors all this crazy stuff. So, like, we have drugs that are keeping people alive longer. Like, they're not supposed to be here, and they still are. And they're still, like, cognizant enough to be making decisions, so they feel like they shouldn't have to retire. Yeah. So now you have principals in their late 70s who are still making decisions in agencies, and you're like, and I mean this with the most respect, that 78-year-old's goals and are not the same as the 55-year-old or the 50-year-old coming behind them who is responsible for the next 20 years of that agency. You have to get a plan in place that gets that person out. And what happens is they go, well, he told me that he'll take care of me, or, I just... every time I try to have this conversation, it just gets uncomfortable. I'm like, it has to be friggin' uncomfortable. This is the future of your life.
Yeah.
And look, like, I've had really hard conversations. I've never had this particular conversation. When I did, obviously we know what happened, right? The answer was, you're never going to own this agency. Yeah. And I had to make a decision. My decision was to leave, right? This was my family's agency. My wife still owns it today. And I was told, well, your wife will have a chance to earn in, and she has a plan, which is great for her. I was told that will never be me, and I made the decision to leave. I would be making a lot more money if I had just stayed there and continued to work, but that just wasn't what I wanted. So the problem is, too many second-generation professionals in our industry are just hoping that someday their father or mother or uncle or aunt or whoever is going to give them the business. And it's like, if you don't have a contract, you don't own anything.
Not only that, but it's so much like, we call those companies like lifestyle businesses.
Yes.
That 78-year-old, they're not reinvesting into the business.
No.
They're pulling it out to fill up their boat full of gas.
Yes.
And so you're going to wait for however long until that person passes away or finally sees the light, and there isn't going to be anything there.
Yeah.
Steve made a good point on one of the last ones. Steve Anderson, he said, I don't have any data on this, but I'm pretty sure it's right, that you have an aging producer or principal that has grown a book of aging clients with aging friends. And he's like, at some point, they're all going to die.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have an agency. 100%. If you don't do it right.
There's no such thing as maintenance.
Yes, and if you're not,
maybe for a bit.
If you're not innovating, if you're not growing, if you're not expanding into new markets in terms of getting fresh blood into your agency, this may or may not be a secret to people, but we now have the ability in these PE firms. I know everyone hears the multiples are huge. The multiples are huge for the agencies that have books of business that these companies actually want.
Yeah.
The multiples aren't huge for every agency that gets sold today. Like, I feel like there's this disposition of agency principals that are walking around just thinking, when I'm ready, I'm going to get this huge multiple because all these. If your book is something that they want,
right?
If you just have a crappy old book of people paying in cash and doing. You're not getting those ridiculous multiples. You're getting standard multiples, if anything else. So, like, the way you can present your agency, how you communicate to people, what the market segment is it growing? How fast is it growing? These are all really important factors into how you can sell. And my point in going back to that second generation thing is, if you want to take control, you have to stop complaining about my father won't let me do this, or my uncle won't let me do this, or my aunt won't let me do this, or whatever. You just have to walk in and go, I want to buy this agency. What does that look like? And they're going to squirm and they're going to get uncomfortable and go, don't you know I'm going to take it? And go, I don't care. And I know people who have done this. Again, that's why I'm saying this. I'm not saying this like I have firsthand experience. I know people who have done this. You have to walk in and just say, no. The only other option is I have to leave. Either we figure out a path, which could be you here for another 10 years. We're not saying kick them to the door. That's not what I'm saying. This could mean you have another 10 years, 15 years, however long. But we need to have a documented plan in place so that I know what the future of my family looks like, or and you have to be willing to pull that ripcord. And what happens is most people aren't willing to pull that ripcord because they're making a good living. So it's much more fun going back all the way around to the lack of innovation that 45-year-old who is super interested in this stuff is not willing to leave if they're not going to be. So they just show up here and they pay and they listen and they nod their head and they learn and then they bitch and they do nothing and they have their country club membership and then they show up and then they come and they pay and it's just this revolving cycle where nothing actually happens because they have the country club membership. Their spouse is driving a 7 Series, but they don't have control, so they just complain a little bit. And that's the cycle and nothing ever happens.
I think, though, and again, I don't have any data on this, but I feel like that is changing at an increasing rate.
Yeah.
People are experiencing different client experiences in other industries, and right now they're kind of comfortable with just being like, buying insurance kind of sucks. Eventually they're not going to be, because there's going to be an easier way from somebody like a Rogue Risk or somebody that can go, no, I can get you that way easier. Create a better client experience, do it differently, and the 78-year-old owner is going to say, well, shit, maybe it's time to sell. And that's is different for every employee at that agency now. They're working for Brown & Brown now, or they're working for Hub or whoever.
I think so whether the perpetuation plan is to the next generation or internal or external, I would highly advocate, and there are so many resources. There's Carrie Wallace, who helps Steve with Catalyst. She has a business called Agency Focus. There's Chris Baran. There's who's that company out of Baltimore that does all this stuff forever that's really good. There are plenty of companies that will help you with your valuation. Get a valuation every year. It's only going to cost you $2,000. Say every single year, get a valuation. Understand where your book is moving, what it's valued at, what the market sees. And the reason is, if you continue to do that, then you are ready. You are more prepared for when it is time to sell. Because what the worst case scenario is, something happens, ownership there's never a perpetuation in plan. Then principal dies, or principal becomes incapacitated, or principal needs money, and all of a sudden, really bad decisions, short-term decisions are made, and the whole agency gets thrown into flux, and now, like you said, you're working for, and nothing against to say at Brown & Brown, but maybe you just didn't want that experience. All of a sudden, you're working for a larger entity that you had never contemplated. And
that once paid back for their multiple.
And this is, and now you're in a really bad situation when 12 months prior, you could have sat and had an uncomfortable but productive discussion around how do we make sure you get taken care of, person who built this agency and deserves all the schmoogies you can get, so that I can be the next generation.
I noticed that a couple times.
Someone said that one time, and it's like stuck in my brain now. I don't love it.
So,
well, let's talk about how. Are you going to how?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get there, I'm going to ask you a high-level philosophical question that's going to roll into how. How many out of the 38,000 independent insurance agencies scattered across the country, how many have to think the way that we do for us to change the industry? We think about this internally inside our organization. We ask ourselves, how many people have to believe and have the right mindset and the right thinking to ultimately change the direction of our ship?
This may sound, I don't know if this is a good or bad answer, but I think now more than ever it's time to be selfish. I think we have to start to think about our agency and not about changing the industry, because I don't know that it's possible. I don't know that you can change the industry. I think that there are just so many, it's such a fragmented market that if everyone just thought selfishly about what the best solution was for their business,
we'd all be standing at the bar
we'd
together.
all be standing at the freaking bar together. We'd all be there doing a lot of the same things, using a lot of the same tools, working through a lot of the same processes. But because you have people who, you have a lot of agencies that rightly so are trying to maintain, that are trying to keep paying all their people. Not every we have painted a picture of every agency as a successful, dominating, and I know that's not the case. There are a lot of agencies that are startup agencies, doing all different things. That I do think now more than ever, it's time to be selfish. Look at your agency, look at your people, look at your customer base, think about who you want to be, and go find the resources that allow you to do that thing. It could be Epic for one. It could be, a different agency management system. It could be this CRM.
It's probably not Epic.
It could be this payment system. Well, truth be told, Epic is probably the one agency management system that does everything that it says it will do. Imperfect, but it does do everything it says it's going to do.
They just drive me nuts.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not going to discount that, and since this is probably going to be published publicly. I'm just kidding. No, but I think in general,
It's just internal use only.
I think many of them are changing. I think there are some good things happening at Vertfort. They're certainly not perfect. I think there's some good things happening at Applied. I think because agencies are starting to push forward, are starting to take cues, more and more of them, are starting to show real results. I mean, remember, the digital revolution in our business only started like 5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So baby. So for a long time, there just wasn't results. There just wasn't anyone who said, look, I put $1 million in premium on the books in a quarter off of this digital process. And then, so, what I mean? No one just had the numbers. Now you're starting to see agencies that are going, look, like we're using this tool and this tool and this tool, and we're pounding business through, and that's forcing other players to make moves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a wonderful thing. That's why I say be selfish. Go figure out what works for you. Do business, write business, grow. And when you're growing, I mean,
people take notice.
Every carrier and vendor in our industry will bend over for a high growth agency. I mean, what do you want? You know what I mean? Yeah. We'll do it. And I think we're at a day where we're starting to see those success stories and things are starting to change. So, I don't want to cast anyone aside. I think there are solutions for everybody. I used to be very anti-Applied because I just don't like some of their business practices, but I do think Taylor Rhodes, who's the new CEO of Applied, is changing a lot of that culture. I think he's doing a great job. So, and I don't know him personally, and I don't use Applied, but I just know a lot of agencies that do. So,
yeah.
I want to touch on one thing that now I'm gonna forget what it was. All right, let's keep going. I'll remember.
Well, when you remember it,
yeah, I'll come back to it.
Well, so I just think, like, let's say using that example of we've got the second generation coming in or whatever. Now they're going to take over. How do they make this shift? Like, in your mind, how do you see this happening? More tactically.
Small chunks, small, tiny little bites, right? I think a big mistake that I've seen a lot of second generation or perpetuating agents try to make is they want to do some big, huge, we're going to take on HubSpot, right? Yeah. I mean, HubSpot is a 24-month endeavor. a tool like that, tool that size, that magnitude. We're going to do little tiny bites. Like I was talking about Ascend, the payments platform. That's a small little thing that you can test, right? Mm-hmm. No cost to the agency. You can, hey, let's do a couple transactions using this tool, see what happens, see if we like it. Okay. Run a pilot, run a test, right? Like small little incremental changes where you can go, hey, Dad, we're using this, we're testing this Ascend out. We don't have to capture any cash in our trust account anymore. And geez, it's saving Tina like 15 minutes on an ES transaction. Okay. Yeah. That's it's not impacting bottom line. It's saving some time. He's probably gonna walk over and ask Tina. Tina says, "Yeah, perfectly fine." Great. Yeah. Now you've taken and just moved the needle a little tiny bit, and you almost. I mean, if you want to be super tactical, I mean, I'm not this kind of person, but if you did, you could almost like map out over the course of 12 months.
Yeah, small tactical moves.
Yeah, here's 2 or 3 tools, 4 tools that we want to tactically implement over the course of the year. Test. If they don't work, roll it back. Don't force it because that'll also show trust and prove. But I've seen that work where all of a sudden, 24 months later, you're doing some pretty digital, some pretty streamlined things, and no one feels pressured. Yeah. No one feels like it was this major overhaul. It feels very natural and organic. And that to me, I've seen that be the most successful versus just that other method of I'm so frustrated, I'm just going to shove this huge change down your throat, and all you get is trouble.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to totally steal part of your presentation. So for those that weren't here, you're getting a little freebie. But I just love the part where you were talking about the human optimized agency. But identify the valueless transactions that your people are doing, and look for a different way to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a digital tool.
Yep.
Just look for a different way to do it.
Yes.
And I don't think that type of mentality is done very much in agencies at all, because we aren't pressured to do it. It's like going back to our whole conversation. Mm-hmm. People are used to one way of doing it, and they're going to keep purchasing that way until we show them a different way. Well, unless we are looking at it that way and saying, what are the things that our clients, even if they don't know there's a different way to do it, what are they seeing that is creating friction, that is not driving value, and how can we do that differently?
There's no upside for Sally to bring that stuff up to the agency owner.
It was like that gal that brought up the 10% thing.
Yeah.
She's probably going, yeah, but I'm just good at what I do.
Yep.
What's her incentive?
Are you outsourcing me too?
Yeah.
So wait a minute, you're going to free up my time?
No, this is a really good point. This is something, if you are a leader in an agency trying to do some of this stuff, you have to be very careful of. So going back to my Murray Group days, they were on TAM, and they're actually making the move to Epic. But we considered that move I was still there. So this is 10 years ago when Epic was first coming out. They were first rolling out Epic. I mean, TAM is a server rack in one of your rooms, and you got to keep it cool and all. I mean, it's crazy. And and they had this cloud-based system, which at the time wasn't perfect, but because cloud was still whatever. But it was really interesting, and I was like, this is something we should consider. Well, when Epic first came out, the accounting was different. It was different than the way TAM did it. I don't know all the details. I just know there was. And our person who did the accounting, she's like, no, we can't take this on. Yeah. No, you don't understand the accounting, blah, 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 blah. Because what she saw was, I can do in a quarter of the time, because of the way Epic was set up, that used to, she'd have all these stacks of printouts this big, and she'd be like, okay, we paid on this one, we paid on this one, we paid on this one, whatever. That was her job. It would take her like 4 days to figure out all the commission checks and transactions. With Epic, it made it easier. And she just told us every reason and she completely squashed it. They did not move to Epic, and here they are 12 years later, 10 years later, moving to this tool that they could have been on the whole time, that would have helped them during the pandemic, because they were on TAM during the pandemic, and which means they had to drive into the freaking thing and all this crazy stuff, right? And
drive into the freaking thing.
Yeah, and I guess they call them offices. So, and because one woman or person, doesn't matter if she's a woman, was worried that her job was
She was going to get outsourced.
She was worried that she was going to have to do something different. Her job was going to be outsourced, and all of a sudden something took her 4 days, was going to take her 1 day, and she's like, oh my God.
What the hell am I going to do?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So she made such a big stink. She told us all the reasons why our accounting would be effed and the commission checks would be wrong, and blah, 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 and that deal got squashed. And like that stuff happens all the time. If you talk to Kelly Donahoe-Piro, I don't know if you're familiar with her, she will tell you that, or hopefully she said this, I'm pretty sure she has, something around the fact that the number one, you have to get your account manager and bookkeeper on a tool before you get anyone else, even before you bring it to leadership. Like if you're trying to get a tool implemented, those are the people that squash tools more than anyone else.
Yeah.
It's those individuals, because they'll just be like, oh yeah, this thing that you're paying me to do, I can't do it anymore. And what they're worried about is, I don't want to lose my job.
Yeah. Well, and it's powerful because they've got a lot of arrows in their quiver to come back and be like, here's why it won't work. And when you start talking about tax ramifications and the IRS and auditing and all this stuff from an accounting perspective, everyone's like, oh shit.
Well,
that gets pretty scary. Okay, we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's working.
Yeah, and the boss is going, well, geez, I haven't processed a car change in 20 years. Sal, you're telling me you can't do it anymore? Sorry, we can't take on this thing. You know what I mean? Because, all he or she is thinking about is, oh my God, I don't want to have to figure out how to do that.
Well, I used to run into Sally's office, and she used to just do it for me.
Yeah, yep.
I think it's important of being careful about how we bring this out to our team, right?
Yeah.
Helping them understand that it's not about that we're trying to take or replace your job. We're trying to reposition your job to be bringing value to clients with our most valuable resource, which is our people.
I think I would position it a slightly different way. I would say that.
You can tell me I'm wrong. It's fine.
No, I don't think you're.
He just did.
Well, that was being nice. I don't actually think you're wrong. I'm just saying I personally would position it a different way. I'm not saying you're wrong. I would personally position it as, especially if the general understanding, whether spoken or unspoken, is that you've been in maintenance mode, is that the reason we're doing this is not I don't want you to think that we're trying to outsource you. It's we're going to take that time and now we're going to sell more, which means everyone has the opportunity to make more money. Right? Now, if versus, hey, we're doing it this way and we're maintaining, but look, they all know they don't get annual increases in their salary and their bonus isn't as high as maybe it could be. Mm-hmm. They're not dummies because you're maintaining. And if you can reposition it, and look, not every employee is going to be into growth. Some people are going to see that as just as much of a threat.
Yeah.
I get that.
More work and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
I get that. But if you can say, look, I'm going to remove this time here so that we can grow here. And what that means for you is bigger bonus.
That's the key statement.
Increase.
What that means.
More time with your family.
More time with your
vacations,
family.
Whatever it is.
Hey, you're sick and you don't want to come in or whatever. Maybe we can consider for people who hit certain targets a hybrid work environment where 1 day a week you can work from home if you want to. These are the kinds of little ditties or whatever that if you reposition it in that way, that I'm not doing this so that I don't have to pay for you. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this so we can grow and we can all make more money or have more time or more freedom or whatever the trigger is for them. I think that's a better way to position it, because now they're not thinking, oh, he's looking to sell the agency and he's trying to bring down expenses and I've only been here for 4 years, everyone else has been here for 10, I'm gonna get caught. No, we can't have this, versus, oh, you mean I could get if I hit certain cross-sell targets, I could get a $1,500 raise now because we're in growth mode? Cool. All right. Oh yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean?
No, I don't agree with growth, and it's like, fine, Bob down the street's in maintenance mode.
Yes. I do think that, and this is the hardest part, and I just had to fire a guy on Friday, actually, of last week.
That's not fun.
It's never fun. I fired enough people at this point and been fired enough that I'm fairly comfortable with the conversation. But, it's never a fun conversation, but, he didn't align with what we were doing, right? I mean, it was good guy. I think perfectly capable commercial producer. I think that at a more traditional agency where he has more of a mentor, he would probably be successful at some point. But in our model, the way we operate, how we do things, he just wasn't a good fit. I had to let him go. Is it painful? Yeah. I was selling policies before, I came down here at 8:50, not because I didn't want to hang out with people, but because I was selling a policy at 8 o'clock this morning. And I don't want to sell policies. Our business is losing if I'm selling policies.
Yeah.
Right? Like the way again, to your work on the business, not in the business, it's not that I can't or I think it's below me. It's that for my role in the company as its president, me selling policies is not the best use of my time. But he wasn't a good fit, and I couldn't let him linger as a non-fit to what we were trying to do. And I think a lot of times, and I've seen this even in my wife's agency, where he's a good guy. I don't dislike him in any regard. And I actually referred him to 2 or 3 agencies that I think he would be a good fit for. He just wasn't a good fit for us. And the short-term pain of letting him go, and just not wanting to hurt someone's feelings who you think is a good person, which obviously you don't. I was willing. I think you have to be willing to overcome that to find those individuals who are the right fit. Like I have this client success person, and we call our CSRs client success, and she's from Florida, and she's got 2 kids, and there are times where she needs an hour in the morning because something happened, babysitting or whatever. But she is so freaking good at her job that I could care less.
Yeah.
I could care less. I could care less that sometimes there's a kid in the freaking Slack call with me when we're doing video.
That's how you build a relationship.
And I just, when she's apologetic, she's like, Tammy's going to be here in 10 minutes, whatever. I'm like, Jesus, Leslie, I could care less.
Don't worry about it.
You know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm going to get that back in this way or this way or this way from you. And, because she's a great cultural fit.
So many people do not calculate the cost of having somebody unhappy in their role. Because you're not only costing your business, but you're costing them their life by not being the leader and stepping in and saying, listen, like, you deserve better here because we've realigned or we've changed direction, and you've consistently talked to us about how you don't want to do that. That's fine, but we're not a good fit anymore, and you're going to be much happier over here and be able to accomplish all your goals over here.
Yeah.
You should think about doing that.
Yeah, I think this is a really, going back to our first generation, second generation conversation, this is one of the things that I find really interesting, right? So, again, going back to in the business, in the business or on the business. So many of the first generation agency principals that are still around in their agencies, they're producers.
Yes.
They were successful because they were producers, and they're great producers. A lot of times
the business was built on their book.
Business was built on their book. That's what they are. They are producers. They had the gumption or guts or whatever to start the business and take on the risk, and that's why they own it. But really, they're not CEOs or presidents. They're high-functioning producers. And what I find interesting is you would think that there could be a conversation where second generation, and I found this many times, the second generation is not as good a producer, but is a better business leader, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where the disconnect is the second generation is coming in going, man, I want to build systems. I want to help us run more efficiently. I want to take care of our people. I want to renegotiate our contracts with our carriers. And the agency principal at first generation is going, just go out and sell. Yeah. Just go out and sell. And you're like,
make 5 more calls.
You're like, yeah, but I'm interested in this stuff. And in a better, you'd almost think like a more optimized scenario would be you want that second generation person to come up and be the president. Again, we're not talking necessarily just about ownership, but come up and be the president and be able to work on those things, and let the first generation principal go back to doing what they love. Take all that crap off their plate.
Exactly.
Go play golf and sell.
You got to have a plan though, or it doesn't work.
But you got to have a plan. That is the key.
Bingo. Well, we are past our time. Big Al's probably yelling at us, but that was awesome, dude. That was one of the longest. I'm glad you flew in for our longest podcast.
Yeah, this has been great. This is a good conversation.
We can keep going.
Yeah, man, we had a lot of fun.
This is fun.
Sweet. Especially throw some beers in front of us.
Yeah, we should have had beers. I was gonna grab a couple of those mimosas and bring them up, but I don't know. I didn't do it. But
you're selling policies, dude.
Yeah, I do enjoy. Here's the interesting part about our business is that I feel like everyone gets into it. I think most people get into it at a deeper level. I think some people just get in because it's a job, but I think a lot of people get in and stick because we really do love helping people. And I hope that everyone listening, we made a lot of jokes. We were a little facetious 100%. And a little maybe went past the line on purpose just to make it funny and fun. I hope everyone realizes that. I think I've said this in presentations before. I didn't say it today. This industry has given me a life that when I was growing up, I could have never imagined. Like, we grew up, I don't know lower class. We were poor. We did not have a lot of money. People used to say that the criminals lived in our town. They didn't steal from our town because that's where it's like 900 people in middle of nowhere in upstate New York. And this industry has given me a life that I could have never possibly imagined. So I think we're all very blessed to be here, and that what we really want to do is help people. And I hope what people take from this is that while we were being fun and a little outrageous and having some jokes and stuff, that it's all only in good-natured ribbing to the point where I think we do really important work, and we want this to continue in the way, in a way similar to the way that we've grown it. And I think that's the important part.
It's a fantastic point. And the same is true for the old agency owners that were beaten up on.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is if they didn't bring us on the payroll in the first place, we
100%.
wouldn't even have the right to have this conversation.
They all could drink us under the table, too.
Yeah.
And out-golf us.
That is very true.
Well, on that note, let's go get drinks.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.